Welcome to Revenge with Lyra. Break down the door. This is our son's apartment. The pounding shook the frame, each thud echoing like a memory I'd tried too long to bury. I stood on the other side of it, barefoot, the morning light spilling across the floor like an accusation. When I finally turned the lock and opened the door, their faces froze. Mom's hand still gripped the crowbar. Dad's expression was somewhere between outrage and disbelief, and my brother, of course, hid behind them, pretending to look concerned. What they saw in my hands made them all stumble back. It wasn't a weapon. It was a stack of papers, bank statements, lease documents, and one thick folder titled Property Transfer Agreement. My name was on every page. Mom's voice faltered. "What? What is that?" "The proof," I said calmly, my voice steadier than I felt. "Proof that this apartment, this home, you called your son's, it's mine. Every bill, every payment, every signature, all me. My name is Lena Grant. I'm 29. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. Yesterday at Dad's birthday dinner, they'd humiliated me in front of everyone. You're just a tenant, Lena." Mom had laughed. "We let you live there because of your brother. It's his investment." Everyone at the table had joined in, smirking, sipping wine. My throat had burned while my brother winked like he'd won. So last night, I changed the locks. And this morning, when they came to reclaim his place, they learned whose name was actually on the deed. Dad stepped forward, rage trembling through his jaw. "You stole from your family." I met his eyes. "No, Dad. I just stopped giving." Their silence filled the hallway like smoke. I watched them lower the crowbar, finally realizing the door they tried to break down had never really belonged to them at all. Dad's voice cracked the air. "You ungrateful child. We raised you. We paid for everything you have." I almost laughed. "You mean what I paid for with every double shift since college? Or the mortgage you forgot to pay when I was 21, and I covered it so you wouldn't lose the house?" The papers in my hand fluttered as I spoke. The sound of truth, thin, sharp, undeniable. Mom's expression hardened, the kind that used to silence me as a teenager. "You can't speak to us like this, Lena. We're your parents." "I'm aware," I said. "That's why I kept forgiving you long after you stopped deserving it." Behind them, my brother Carter looked pale, almost offended that his usual charm wasn't working. "You made this about money," he sneered. "You made it about ownership," I countered. "And I just reclaimed mine." They stood in stunned silence as I moved past them, setting the documents on the hall table. "I didn't steal your son's apartment, Mom. You lied about who bought it. I signed every paper you told me to trust you with. You used my savings, my credit, and my name. So, please explain again how this belongs to Carter." Mom's face drained of color. Dad turned toward him sharply. "Is that true?" Carter opened his mouth, then closed it again. She offered to help. "It was supposed to be temporary." 7 years isn't temporary," I interrupted. The hallway went still, except for the faint sound of my neighbor's TV through the wall. I took a slow breath, looking at each of them one by one. "You came here ready to break down my door, to call me crazy, to prove a point." I stepped back into my apartment, my hand on the frame, "But the only thing broken here is your illusion of control." The door clicked shut between us, and for the first time, it felt like mine. By evening, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. First Mom, then Carter, then unknown numbers, relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Apparently, word traveled fast when the family's problem child finally stopped being their free ride. The first voicemail was Mom's voice, high-pitched and trembling. "Lena, we didn't mean to upset you. You've always been too sensitive. Please come by and talk before this gets worse." The second was colder. Dad's tone like polished steel. "Return the property paperwork before we involve lawyers." The third came from Carter. "You think this makes you the hero? You'll regret embarrassing us." I poured a glass of cheap wine and set my phone face down. The quiet hummed with a new kind of power. My apartment was finally peaceful. No one shouting. No one guilt-tripping me into paying for emergencies. Just the low hum of the fridge and the slow thump of my heart finally calming. I wandered to the window, watching the city lights bleed into the night sky. For years, I'd believed peace came after earning forgiveness. But now I understood it comes after stopping the performance. There was a knock on the door. Ethan, my upstairs neighbor, stood there holding a half-eaten pizza. "You okay? Thought I heard yelling this morning." I smiled faintly. "Family stuff. I'm fine now." He studied me for a moment, then handed me a slice. "Fine never sounds fine. But okay. Just don't let them guilt you back into chaos." "I won't," I promised. When he left, I leaned against the door and whispered to no one. I'm done being the apology for other people's choices. Outside, thunder rolled over the city, deep and distant. Tomorrow, I'd go to the bank and make the ownership transfer official. Tonight, I'd sleep with both locks secure. And for once, not because I was scared of what could come in, but grateful for what I'd finally shut out. The next morning, The world felt cleaner. Like the storm had washed something away that night. I made coffee, scrolled through the bank app, and smiled when I saw the confirmation. Property fully registered under Lena Grant. No more shared signatures. No parental co-signers. It was official. 10 minutes later, Mom showed up uninvited. She stood in the doorway, her lipstick smudged, eyes puffy like she hadn't slept. "You're destroying this family," she said quietly. "I'm setting boundaries," I replied. "There's a difference." She tried to step inside, but I didn't move aside. "Lena, we made sacrifices too. You just don't remember them." "I remember plenty," I said. "I remember taking double shifts so Carter could go on that European exchange program. I remember you telling me to stay quiet so he could look successful. I remember paying your credit card bill because you were worried about your score. Want me to keep going?" Her expression twisted into something half guilt, half fury. "You've always been dramatic. This attitude will ruin you." I tilted my head. "You mean ruin your control?" She looked at the floor. For a moment, I almost softened almost. But then she whispered, "Your brother's business is struggling. The least you could do is transfer the apartment to his name. You don't even need it." That was the last straw. "Mom," I said evenly, "you taught me one thing. Family only counts when it's convenient. So, no, I don't need to. And neither of you get to decide what I keep anymore." Her tears didn't move me this time. I'd seen that act before. As she turned to leave, she muttered, "You'll regret this." "Maybe," I said softly, "but at least it'll be my regret, not yours." When the door shut, I realized something vital. Freedom doesn't always feel triumphant. Sometimes it just feels quiet, solid, earned. By midweek, the quiet started to crack. Not from guilt, but from the ripple effect of exposure. Carter had taken to social media, posting vague quotes about betrayal from within and family snakes. His friends, most of whom were my old classmates, filled the comments with sympathy. I read them all. Each line a tiny cut. I no longer bled from. Then came a call from my aunt. "Honey, what's going on? Everyone's saying you cheated your brother out of his apartment." I let out a breath. "Aunt May, you know that apartment? I bought it. Every cent came from my savings." She hesitated. "They said you're unstable, that you're making things up." Of course they did. That's how gaslighting sounds. Clean, polite, perfectly practiced. That night, I printed copies of the deed, receipts, and transfers. Facts had become my shield. Ethan stopped by as I organized the files. "You're building a case?" "More like protecting one," I said. He smiled. "Good. Because people like that, they only stop when you make truth louder than their lies." Friday came with a text from Dad. "Family meeting Saturday mandatory." I stared at it half expecting please. It never came. Saturday arrived gray and cold. Their house, the same one I helped save years ago, looked smaller now, stripped of the grandeur they'd once flaunted. Mom opened the door with a forced smile. "Let's just keep this civil." Inside, the dining table gleamed as if polished for battle. Carter leaned back in his chair, smirking. "We can settle this quietly, Lena. You sign over the deed, and we'll pretend this never happened." I placed the folder of documents on the table between us. "You're right," I said calmly. "Let's settle this quietly." When I flipped open the first page, their faces drained of color, because what waited inside wasn't a compromise. It was truth, notarized, and final. Dad's knuckles went white as he grabbed the document. "This can't be right." "It's legal," I said evenly. "Purchased under my name, paid through my account, signed and stamped." He turned the pages like a man searching for a loophole that didn't exist. Mom sat frozen, eyes darting between me and Carter. "You tricked us," she whispered. "No," I replied. "You underestimated me." Carter slammed his fist on the table. "You think a few papers make you better than us?" I met his glare. "No, just fair," he scoffed. "You've always been jealous of me." I smiled faintly. "Jealous of what? The debt? The excuses? The fake confidence?" His jaw clenched. "You've ruined everything. Now everyone's talking about how you turned against your own family." I leaned forward, my tone soft but cutting. "I didn't turn against family. I just stopped being your safety net." Mom suddenly stood, her voice trembling. "Lena, please. We can't afford to lose that apartment. Your brother's business is failing. He needs collateral for a loan." I felt something inside me click. A calm that only comes when a wound finally stops bleeding. "That's not my problem anymore." Dad rose too, veins pulsing at his temple. "You're selfish." I looked him dead in the eye. "For 10 years, I gave. I paid. I forgave. You called it love. It was survival. I'm done surviving." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Carter broke it with a bitter laugh. "You'll regret this. You're nothing without us." I gathered my folder, stood up, and said quietly, "Then it's a good thing I finally found out who I am." When I walked out, I didn't look back. Their house, their judgment, their noise, all of it shrank in my rear-view mirror. For once, the road ahead belonged entirely to me. The following week, The fallout spread like wildfire. Carter's loan application was denied. Apparently, the bank verified ownership before approval. Mom sent a long message full of scripture quotes about forgiveness. Dad's only words were, "You made your point. Now fix this. Fix this." That was their family motto, wasn't it? Break something, then hand it to me to mend. At the diner, I caught my reflection in the coffee pot. Eyes clearer, posture taller. Ethan slid into the booth across from me with 2 mugs. "You look lighter," he said. "Maybe because I finally stopped trying to earn what should have been given," I replied. That night, I sat at my desk staring at the open envelope from the city's housing department and offered to join a local business mentorship program. My design work from night school had apparently caught someone's attention. I almost cried. For years, I'd been defined by other people's emergencies. Now, an opportunity had found me because of my work. I accepted before I could overthink it. The next morning, I posted one thing online. "When peace feels like rebellion, you were never living free to begin with." By noon, the family chat exploded again. Mom accused me of making the family look bad. I muted the thread and went back to sketching logo concepts for my first client. Ethan came by in the evening with a box of pastries. "Celebration food," he grinned. "For the woman who finally chose herself." We ate by the window, the city lights reflecting on the glass. "Do you ever miss them?" he asked softly. I thought about it for a long time. I miss who I hoped they could be. Outside, rain tapped against the glass, steady and sure, like the sound of something washing away. A month later, I stood on a small stage at the community hall, my hands trembling, not from fear, but from disbelief. The business mentorship program had chosen my presentation as one of their featured success stories. My slides displayed sketches from late nights, diner breaks, and tired mornings. All the pieces of a life I built while everyone told me I was wasting time. When it ended, the audience applauded. The sound felt unreal. Validation that didn't come with strings attached. Afterward, a woman from the city council shook my hand. "Your story resonated with so many people," she said. "We'd like you to mentor the next group." I smiled, feeling something rise in my chest that I hadn't felt since childhood. Pride without apology. Later that night, I drove home through the city glow. Music low. Windows down. As I pulled into my parking spot, a familiar car idled by the curb. My parents stepped out, their faces softer, smaller. Mom's voice cracked. "We just wanted to see you. We heard about your talk." Dad looked at the ground. "You did good, Lena." For a second, I searched their eyes for sincerity. I didn't find much, but maybe enough. "I appreciate you coming," I said calmly. "But I don't need fixing anymore. I'm good." Mom's tears welled. "Can we start over? Maybe someday," I said gently. "When it's not just because you lost control." I walked past them up the steps to my apartment, each one a line between past and present. Inside, the lights glowed warm. The air smelled like coffee and calm. Ethan texted, "Proud of you. Dinner tomorrow." I smiled. Always outside. Their car drove away slowly, swallowed by the city's hum. I exhaled, locking the door behind me, not to keep them out, but to protect the peace I'd built, and that was the moment I finally understood. Freedom isn't when they stop holding you back. It's when you stop holding.